Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dojo Live this Wednesday, February 8th, 2023. My name is Kim Landis, and it's my pleasure to be co-hosting along with America Guerrero today. America, how are you?
Hey, nice to meet you.
Yes.
And this is going to be exciting. This is a topic that I'm not familiar,
I actually
have a lot of questions.
I know. I actually think that today's topic, aquaculture, is the first time we've ever touched on this in Dojo Live history, and we're talking about over 500 shows, folks. But who's going to tell us all about it? Today's guest is Stian Rognlid, who is the CEO of Aquaticode. Stian, thank you so much for joining us today, all the way from Norway. I'm not even sure what time of the day is it for you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's 7 o'clock here in the evening.
All right, so acceptable, right?
Reasonable, yeah.
Yes, perfectly acceptable. Yeah, no worries.
A great way to wrap up your day as we begin ours here over in 10 o'clock Pacific time. But this is awesome. So, Stian, thank you so much for sharing aquaculture, all about aquaculture and how that mixes with technology with us. But before we get to the topic today, we'd love to get to know you a bit better. What's your story? What's your background, and what's kind of led up to Aquaticode?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Stian Rognlid. I'm the CEO of Aquaticode, which is an early stage company that builds artificial intelligence for aquaculture. Now, previously, I used to work for a company called Nutreco and a division called Aquatic, which is the world's largest aqua feed producer. And I did several positions within that company. I spent some years in Brazil and then some years in Ireland before I joined the global head office leading Aquatic's RAS efforts. And RAS is recirculating aquaculture systems. It's basically a production system that allows you to grow salmon and other aquatic species on land in facilities almost anywhere in the world, as long as you have good water and energy and land access.
Perfect.
So that's the sort of let's say the work related thing.
So but you said aquatic feed, like the actual food you throw to the fishies.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. The brown, very delicate looking pellets that you feed the fish with.
All right. And then, so this is a big jump from food sourcing to the technology side of this. What about Aquaticode then? What is it that you do?
Yeah, so Aquaticode is basically a product of having had 15 different R&D collaborations across the value chain of multiple species. And we're launching a product right now, which is the Sort Pro. And the first feature of the machine is gender sorting. And I know this isn't a podcast about that per se, but I'll just give you a brief background about it.
Why does gender sorting matter?
Yeah, exactly.
In this world of DEI. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's because the males grow faster than the females. So if you separate them, then you can shorten production cycles, among other things. There's other aspects to that as well. And it's done manually in the world today with ultrasound. So you'll have people doing ultrasound of fish, and you can imagine these very big facilities that may have 15 million fish or even more than that. They do it in Chile today. They don't do it in anywhere else in the world. And of course, our core competency is artificial intelligence, but we've augmented it with a muscle, which is the machine that does basically the brain's bidding, right? So we have developed a machine that can scan and classify and sort 10,000 juvenile salmon per hour. And for us, that's marrying cutting-edge machine learning with lightning-fast automation, and it's been a tremendously exciting process. So we have the first machine placed at the first customer, and we're actually in a very privileged situation where we're scaling production according to demand. And I also want to mention, so we're launching with gender sorting, but we also view this as a platform. It's a machine that can gather a lot of data, and we can get a lot of insight from that data. So we have several new features in development as well. Yeah. And the last thing I need to say about Aquaticode is that we were not a one-trick pony, right? So we have a very strong innovation pipeline with projects at different stages of maturity.
That's super interesting. Forgive my ignorance here, but there was this TV show of how is it made, and you'd go into factories and places, and the one that blowed my mind was there's the Lay's potato chip, and there's millions of chips passing by, and then there's this AI detecting photo thing that they can shoot air at the burnt chips or the brown chips and get them out of there. So well, I think some slip through, right? But like, so for the most part, you're not going to get a yucky chip. So this is basically what's happening. There's baby juvenile fish, and the computer's saying boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy. As there's robotics involved where they're like placing them in the proper bins so that then they. Okay, so
yes, I mean that's exactly right. One of the key features of AI is being able to recognize these very, very small patterns, and we the gender of the salmon, you have to use an ultrasound to find it. You have to look at internal characteristics, and it's very small patterns in the internal structures of the fish. And the AI, of course, can do it at the blink of an eye, lightning fast, with super high accuracy and the consistency that you can have. It doesn't get tired. Like it will produce the same result all day, basically.
So each individual fish gets ultrasounded in the zap, and then right away it says boy, girl.
Yes, decision.
Wow, this is fantastic. I know this is not about the technology, but I have to ask this very silly question. Sure. How the hardware side, how are we catching these fish, and how are they not harmed in this process? I mean, what does that look like?
It's a good question. I mean, since we are ultrasounding, you're basically stroking the fish, right, with an ultrasound probe. So it is a gentle way of looking at the internal characteristics of the fish. The alternatives would be, cutting it open, which that wouldn't work.
Is that under the water?
No, it's so we do it combined with vaccination. So typically you vaccinate fish when they are very small. And so they're already out of water, they're sedated, they go through vaccination, and then they go through a gender sorting process. When they go through a gender sorting process, but again, it's only done in Chile today. So it's done with 10% of the global salmon smolt population.
Huh. Like you were saying earlier, I think the possibilities of what this can look like for the future are huge. But let's talk specifically about what you wanted to talk about today. And the topic of conversation is
Aquaculture 2.0, powered by AI. How are AI and aquaculture playing an important role in feeding the world's growing population? Can new methods and technologies enable us to produce more with less? So please share with us the response.
Yes. Oh, I will. I have to say, of course, why it matters first. So basically, in parallel with the much needed energy transition, feeding the future is probably the biggest challenge of our time. So we're not even able to feed the current population within the planetary bounds. And I think the Earth's overshoot day, the day where we used all of the resources that the planet is capable of replenishing, was in July this year. And consider the fact that we need to feed 9.7 billion people by 2050, it really is significant. And for me, aquaculture is the solution, because it reduces the strain on nature. Aquatic species tend to have a very high nutritional density. You can eat a lot of the fillet is a big part of the animal. It has a very low carbon footprint to produce. It doesn't require that much space and that much water as many of the other species that we typically eat. But having said that, I also think that there's a lot of untapped potential to make the industry more efficient, more sustainable. And if we are to live on this planet in the future, we absolutely do need to produce more with less. And so that was sort of why I wanted to talk about Aquaculture 2.0, because I think it's a very interesting topic. But I'm of course completely biased.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think there's the beauty in what you're saying, because you're actually producing these salmon in land areas, right? Allowing, I suppose, for the natural populations to recuperate or do their thing, and not impose so much on whatever's happening in nature with that cycle of life. And then you also hear, like, in terms of like fish, what we're pulling from the sea, a whole nother ecological problem with like microplastics and all of this stuff that we end up consuming. And then of course, if they're not having access to those microplastics, then we're not consuming that. I think there's just a whole beautiful thing that's happening here. But I do have to ask my first question, and that's, what's meant by Aquaculture 2.0? What's 1.0 and 2.0?
Yes, yes. I should say though that the half of the salmon's life cycle, or part of it, is on land, and then the rest is in the sea. So you do have to deal with microplastics.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So Aquaculture 2.0 is basically 5 megatrends that are expected to drive progress in the sector. You have selective breeding, which is improving the performance of future generations. Then you have alternative feeds, which is increasing feed ingredients, which is increasing flexibility and accessibility of the animal nutrition. Then you have precision farming, improving the conditions in which the fish is reared. So, the Internet of Things and sensors and making sense of the data you actually get from that, right? Then you have recirculating aquaculture systems, which I talked about briefly in the beginning, because I used to, when I worked in Skretting, that was the area that I worked with. And then you have AI, which is using machine learning to monitor, to analyze, to enable accurate and consistent and automated decisions. And we, of course, are firmly planted in that category. So our core competency is basically biology and computer vision.
That's fascinating. Let me go back to the numbers you mentioned earlier. You said how many millions per? Let's talk these numbers of how it's not humanly possible to do what you're doing. All right. We understand that it's beneficial for supply and demand to separate the males from the females because the males grow much faster. And poor boys, kind of like the dairy industry, right?
Yeah.
We eat the males and we drink milk from the females.
There you go. Although I don't know if I would drink salmon milk, to be honest.
I probably wouldn't drink salmon milk either. I don't think the salmon, they don't produce
There's
milk.
no such thing.
There's no milk. Yeah. But okay, so we understand that, but let's talk numbers in terms of these juvenile fish. First of all, had gender separation even occurred before this type of technology? And if it did, what's the huge difference, exponential capabilities and growth that we're seeing with the help of AI?
Yeah, so it does exist. There's a lot of expertise in Chile to do this manually. And what you typically do is you have a team of people with an ultrasound, right, which is an expert trait. You have to be quite proficient at it, at least to do it fast and accurate. And then you have a team of people around those people, which basically sedates the fish and positions the fish for the person to do the ultrasound. And it is quite fascinating.
This is a matter of seconds, right? I mean, fish can't live out of water, right? This is a fast process.
Yeah, exactly. You have to be fast. You're dealing with the live animal, so animal welfare is extremely important. And it is large operations. It can be, 10, 20, 25 people working in a gender sorting operation, which is I think part of the reason why it's not feasible in the rest of the world. Of course, the labor cost in Chile is lower. If you were to do the same thing in Norway, where I'm from, or in Canada, UK, Australia, the other salmon farming regions, I don't think you could do it. At least not in a way that would make it outweigh the. Or let's say that in a way that it would be productive and financially good.
Sorry, so you're talking about salmons that I don't know how big those animals are, but you also help shrimp farmers, right? With the same problem, identifying if they are male. Okay, sure, please.
No, so we have a very different thing we're working on currently in shrimp, and that's early disease detection. So diseases in shrimp is the biggest problem in that sector specifically, and you have many different ones, but white spot is one disease where if you have a pond that's affected, you have animals in that pond that's affected, and it basically just wipes out the whole pond. So what we do in shrimp is looking at early disease detection. But that's
one of those features that's coming later.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So let's talk numbers. I mean, I get the feasibility in terms of, can people do this? Yes, they can. Is that feasible in all locations? No, because of economic costs. But it's not going to be the case anymore, right? Because you can now bring a machine to Canada and Norway and UK and the other countries to kind of benefit from this gender separation that they're probably not currently utilizing.
Yeah.
But at a low cost. So let's talk about this use case specifically in Chile then. So you said 10, 20 people doing this. what were they capable of in any given day, and what is Aquaticode capable of in any given day?
Yeah, so basically, I would say 2 machines is the equivalent of having between 20 and 30 people in operation doing this. So it is a major leap for sure.
Wow. And in terms of accuracy, like, I mean, I'm sure there's always going to be a male who gets in the female pond and vice versa, but how does that?
Yeah, the accuracy is good. So we're above 95%. And of course, as with machine learning in general, the more data you have and the more annotations that you get on that data, the more you can progress. So I'm certain that will inch forward step by step. So I think that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is the fact that we can introduce new features to the machine, because we are collecting data. We're collecting raw data all the time, and that raw data has a lot of information, and you can see different internal characteristics of the fish and external as well, because we also take a photograph of the individual fish. And so I think that's one key benefit is not just doing the gender sorting, but doing all of these other things, such as detecting early sexual maturation in the salmon and detecting deformities and things like that.
That's fascinating. Now, I know here your focus is clearly on the food industry, but in this technology that you're building, we mentioned, okay, not just gender separation, but disease detection. What are these other applications? Like, is there a limit to this, or what do you and people like you already have in mind of where this might be going?
Oh, that's a great question. So Aquaticode was actually started by a venture builder called Naked Capital. And Naked Capital is a competent owner with a very strong track record in the intersection between computer vision and biology. So the space that we are in aquaculture. And it was started by Monty Schneeberg some years ago after he sold Face.com to Facebook, which is the image recognition algorithms used on Facebook, Instagram.
Like the face that says tag this person,
yeah,
that
exactly.
technology?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And so he had a lot of domain expertise and created Naked Capital. And Naked Capital has started multiple companies. So they've started fertility, which can predict the likelihood or increase the likelihood of live birth through IVF, in vitro fertilization, also computer vision and biology. You have SeedX, which will predict whether or not a seed will germinate, the quality, the color of the fruit, etc., etc. And then you have FDNA, which can detect rare diseases in children. So basically, it's a diagnostics tool that's used by 70% of the geneticists around the world in this particular field.
So is that going to be Aquaculture 3.0? Or is that going to be different?
AI 3.0, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we do have. So I think for us, it's very important to balance a focus on our core competency and what we're doing and getting things to market and execution and everything, with the aspirational vision. Right. So we actually, for us, it's a point to have an innovation pipeline. It's a point for us to spend resources on, not, even though we're a small company, right, not just this one thing, but to look at multiple things and to try to look beyond the curve of where the technological development is taking us and the potential and sort of the next thing to solve. I mean, we are a curious company by nature.
I love that. And I think that's a good transition. I guess I have 2 questions for you. You being the CEO with a background, in biology and in aquaculture, but not necessarily the technical side. Like, moving from something that was much more, I don't even know what the proper word is here, but, physical in terms of like feed and handling into something that is much more technological. What spurred that in you, and what has that journey been like for those people out there, who have this great idea but have no tech background, but they're like, technology can and should accomplish this, I'm going to make it happen? What are some of those lessons learned for you as an individual, and how might you guide someone else?
So I think innovation has been a constant throughout my career. Before I started in Utreco, etc., I used to be a management consultant, and I worked with quite a bit of startups. I was an early stage an angel investor before I started in a startup. I've done that for some years already. Then when I was working with Ross and Skretting, these guys are pioneers. They are developing a new production method, and they are putting a lot of effort into putting it to life in different parts of the world. So it is sort of I think there's a startup mentality to that as well. And so when I had the opportunity to join a startup, which is something that I've always wanted to do. I've always sort of dreamt about it, but I've never sort of I didn't take the leap before, but this opportunity came, and it's within an industry that I'm passionate about, which is aquaculture, and it's a technology that I'm very interested in, which is AI. It was just very natural, and of course I mean, for my lack of deep insight in AI and a very sort of from a very technical standpoint, of course, we have a team that has that insight and that's done this for many years.
I think that's really beautiful. So let's talk about Aquaticode and the team that you are building. Perhaps what's that company culture look like for you, or when you set out on this adventure? What was really important to you that you made sure that this is who we are, or this is how we're going to work? What does that look like?
It is my bet that curiosity is one of their values, right?
Yeah.
What about curiosity?
Oh, let the guest share, because I know that is one of the values, and also encouragement and care, and I think that I'm missing the last one.
Yeah, so curiosity, courage, and capability, and caring. That's our 4 core values, and I do think that speaks to who we are as a team, right? We are curious. We're at the point that we do have innovation projects going on all the time. We have a lot of R&D partnerships, and for me, going into a company such as this, it was very important. It was important that we have, let's say, the leg room. Well, not only the leg room to do it, but it's also encouraged. It's part of the strategy of our owners is for us to be exploitative and to look sort of at the moonshot project and to have an understanding that the major breakthroughs in any sector, and including aquaculture, is very likely to happen in areas we haven't yet considered. So to really encourage us to go out there and to try to understand what will really make a difference to the sector. That was important. And you spoke about how we're organized. So basically, we lend a lot of support functions from Naked Capital. So we lend finance, legal, recruitment, etc. from the Naked Capital, our majority owner and the company that started us. We are all core business in Aquaticode at the moment. So everyone is working either with AI or software development or engineering or product. So it's that's a very I think it's a very nice situation to be in, because it means we do have competent support functions, maybe more competent than the size of our company would suggest, but we don't necessarily have them full time because we don't need them full time, and it really does allow us to focus on what's the most important thing right now.
Like agile. It's very interesting. Very cool. I do have a question as it turns AI. It comes up a lot. I mean, it comes up a lot on our show, and thousands. The imagination is the limit, right? Of where AI is able to make an impact. But you're also seeing a lot in the news and just general perception about the flip side, about AI being the negative thing because it's taking away people's jobs, right? That's the perception. I mean, here you mentioned, what 2 machines could do, what 10, 20 people might be doing. And on one hand, that might impact individuals in Chile, but then it's opening up new jobs for people in Norway who aren't taking advantage of gender separation or whatever this might be. What's your take on that? Like, I mean, I think a lot of the time it's this idea of AI isn't replacing jobs, but it's helping us do our jobs better. How would you help convince or share this idea of the benefits and not just this perception of it being a negative impact on humanity?
It's a big and important question, I think. So I think you always have to recognize that people can get affected by their job changing or even disappearing, which may be the cause of innovation in general, right? That is something to be humble and mindful of, I think. The world at large are enjoying a standard of living that's a tremendous leap from not too many decades ago, right? 2-3 generations ago, it looked completely different. And the reason we enjoy it is because of progress, right? It's because of innovation. It's because of being able to produce more with less, being able to produce faster, being more connected, being able to specialize, etc. And then you can look at AI in many lenses, I think. But one of the drivers of progress here is the 3 industrial revolutions that's come before this. And AI, I think, is part of the 4th industrial revolution. And it will change the world. It will change the world of automation also, right? Because before, automation used to be something that's really good at doing very repetitive, but also very well-defined tasks. If you apply AI to it, then all of a sudden you can do a lot more with automation. So I choose to take a positive sort of standpoint, saying that we are in a situation where we're in trouble already when it comes to what we're doing to our planet. We have to do something. We have to be able to produce more with less, and I do think AI plays a very important role in that.
No, I think that's a really good point. And the idea that it's here to stay, that's not changing. So now that we're in it, how can we make it the best that it can be?
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, we're coming up to the final few minutes of our show today, Stian. And I would like to just bring it back to this idea, right, of you as an individual and your kind of lessons learned. What advice might you have for company leaders or people, who are in these small companies, in these startups, passionate about what they do? What's worked for you in terms of, staying focused, continuing that passion day in, day out? Any words of advice that you'd like to give to others?
Yeah, I mean that there's a lot to say about it. I think being a leader in a startup is something quite special. You have to sort of have a good balance between being visionary, and you have to be risk-taking, and you have to be adaptable and resilient and communicative and collaborative and focused, and you have to stay emotionally connected to people in the company, and not just a leader, by the way. I do think maybe this is one of the hallmarks of being in a startup. Everyone has to be it, because when you're a small company, you cannot afford people not being, let's say, not being what's the word, passionate, and not raising their opinion, and not being engaged in discussions, and not being in an environment where they don't feel enough trust to actually forcefully relay their opinion. So I think it's a special environment. Yeah.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think that what made my words of wisdom, or what I'm pulling from that, is counseling people to think their decisions through. Right? Am I made of this stuff, or am I not? Like, is the startup world for me, or isn't it? And I don't think it's like, this is right, this is wrong, I'm good enough, I'm not good enough. It's just this ability to have that introspection and decision making and realize, yes, that's what I want, and that sounds like a great fit. Or, you know what? No, it's not. I think this is going to work better for me, and I think that's super smart.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of our core strategies has been to hire the best candidate independent of geography. So we do a lot of work digitally, which is something I think has worked very well for us. We've been able to cherry pick a diverse team of highly competent people. We've had the benefit of hiring people from the large technology hubs, Sao Paulo and Tel Aviv and Silicon Valley. And as an early stage company in growth, we really need people who are self-driven, proactive, extremely capable, supportive, and they pull their weight. You know, we need people that's able to grow with the company. So I think for us and for our company, that's been tremendously important.
That's amazing. And is that something that came out? How old are you? Is that something that was sort of forced upon you because of the pandemic and just everything kind of being remote work, or was that something that was established pre-COVID?
I think it would have happened anyway, to be honest. But of course, the pandemic. So we did a lot of hiring at the back end of the pandemic, and so I do think this is a product of that as well. Right? It's people realizing that you can work remotely, and also a lot of people actually having a preference for it. We do meet, right? We're not completely isolated. We do sprints together, or we meet for certain purposes, either all of us or some of us or whatever. But I do think a lot of people have that preference, right? To be able to remotely. We have people who's gone on vacations, people coming from Israel and from Brazil to travel around Europe and to work at the same time. And I think that's a very good benefit that we're able to provide to our employees.
It is. It's like AI. Remote work is here to stay. So now we have to make it better.
Exactly.
Perfect. Well, Stian, thank you so much for sharing your words of wisdom, your story, the Aquaticode story, and what it is that you're doing with AI to produce more with less in this ever-growing population of this one planet Earth that we share. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today, and we wish you and your team nothing but success moving forward.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It was lovely to be here.
Thank you. Thank you all. You know, next week, we're still gearing up for some new shows, so we don't have anything to announce there, but do catch us on Monday for our recap show. And until then, everyone, stay safe. Have a great rest of your week. And thank you again from Dojo Live. Bye for now.